Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to another episode of News Dose, where I give you all of the latest gaming news. And we got some new exciting details about a highly anticipated Xbox Series X exclusive. There's been a lot of questions on what Xbox will do this generation with the Fable franchise after it's been gone for a decade, and it's got a new developer now. Well, I think we got some new information today that could point us in the right direction on what they have planned. Also, is Scalpers jeopardizing the future of the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X? We're going to talk all about that today, but we do have a lot to cover, so let's get right into the news, starting off with one of my favorite games from last generation, Overwatch. If you didn't know, I'm a big fan of Overwatch. It's probably my most played game in recent years, though admittedly I haven't played it for quite a long time. I've been kind of waiting on Overwatch 2 as I give the first game a break. I mean, it's kind of a stressful game at times with so much teamwork required, and even if you are a team player, that doesn't mean your partners will be. That's where the real disconnect is with Overwatch, and the community constantly argues about who knows what's best for their current team, but still it is a great game and I'm super excited about the sequel. The question though is, when are we actually going to see the sequel? I believe they announced it back in late 2019, if I'm remembering right, but since then, we haven't heard much. Well, that's about to change real soon. Jeff Kaplan revealed that they're set to show more on Overwatch 2 at BlizzCon in February. Now, with that said, he's also trying to manage expectations as he pointed out that they still have a ways to go. So it doesn't sound like Overwatch 2 is going to release anytime soon, but at the same time, we should see and hear more about this game starting in February. Now, I don't know about you, but I'm definitely excited to see what they do with Overwatch going forward. I imagine we might see a new hero at BlizzCon and maybe some of the new mechanics or game modes. However, let me know what you would like to see with the new Overwatch sequel. Also, with a big surprise, Crazy Taxi is making a comeback. Well, kind of. Technically, this is a spiritual successor, Taxi Chaos. Yeah, this was a bit of a surprise, but from the very little that we've seen so far, I think it looks promising. I wasn't really expecting to see something like this, and it's one of those franchises that a lot of fans have very fond memories of, especially on the Sega Dreamcast, but it almost seems like Sega's kind of left this one to be a relic of the past. Even then, it sounds like somebody else is ready to take that formula and bring it back in their own way, as you can clearly see where the inspiration came from for this game. And here's the cool thing, it is being developed by Team 6 Game Studios, but it's also being distributed by Sega in Japan and Asia alongside Epicsoft. So Sega actually has some kind of involvement in Taxi Chaos, which I think is very telling. I mean, sure, they're not exactly developing it or anything like that, but it sounds like they're at least signing off on this. It's almost as if they're giving some kind of approval to Taxi Chaos, and that right there is what drew my attention. However, if you are an old Sega fan, this one might be worth paying attention to, and luckily, we're not going to have to wait long to see if this is a good game or not. It's set to release on February 23rd for the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and the Nintendo Switch. Now, CyberPunk was back in the news today, and this is hardly shocking by this point. It seems like every day there's a new story with CD Projekt Red and the disaster launch for CyberPunk 2077 on consoles. I keep saying this, but I mean, it's still a good game. The problem is that your experience really relies on what platform you play it on. I've been playing CyberPunk on the Xbox Series X with no issues whatsoever, and it's got a great world and an interesting story. If you're playing on last generation consoles though, now that's in an entirely different situation. If you really look at what's happening here though, I have no idea why CD Projekt Red thought it was a good idea to release this game in the state it was in. All signs point to them knowing there was some major issues with the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One version. Even before they finally released this game, they delayed it and mentioned that the last generation consoles were the reason, and then it's hard to ignore they purposely never showed this game in action on consoles. So I really believe they knew that there was some problems with the console version. Now maybe they underestimated how big these issues were, and that is very possible, but nonetheless they're taking a pretty large hit now. So check this out, these launch issues have cost the company founders $1 billion. Yeah, that was a very expensive mistake. What's happening here is that their joint stake has been cut by $1 billion, and that's not all. I kind of alluded to this a few days ago, but one of the bigger issues is more long-term. Their reputation has taken a huge hit with this release. For years, they've been known as this great studio that makes amazing games, but with this release having so many problems, they've lost a lot of trust with gamers. Also, word of mouth is really getting around, and that will affect the long-term sales of CyberPunk. In fact, they've already lowered their projected forecast of 30 million units sold down to 25.6 million. That's a big drop-off, and that's why this release is just so baffling to me. They really should have just delayed this game again. I know they wanted that holiday boost, but still, you gotta think about the long term and not just the short term. Now, they say they didn't feel any outside pressure to release Cyberpunk early, and like I said, maybe they underestimated some of these issues, but this was definitely a big mistake. Let's move on to some of the Xbox news though, as we may have just gotten some new details about the upcoming Fable developed by Playground Games. And that right there is the big question with this game. It's the first mainline Fable game not developed by Lionhead. This is a completely new studio built from the ground up to make a new Fable game. Playground Games, of course, is most well known for the Forza Horizon franchise, which is amazing all on its own, but they've been building the studio up for the last few years, and when they finally revealed that this second studio is working on a new Fable game, fans have just absolutely exploded with excitement. This is a fan-favorite Xbox franchise and a welcome return for the Xbox Series X. Even then though, what should you expect with this new Fable? Is it going to be like Lionhead's Fable, or are they going to go in a different direction with some new stuff? The writing in specific has been a really hot topic since people started speculating about a new Fable, and now we're starting to get some hints at what direction they're going to take the story in. So it was just announced today that Playground Games hired Anna McGill, and that's actually a really good hire. She's the writer of Remedy's Control, and if you've been listening to the channel for a while, you know I firmly believe that's one of the best single-player experiences from last generation, and one of the big reasons for that is the amazing writing. It's very well done, as you would expect from a Remedy Entertainment game. With that said, the reason we're talking about this hire is not because she's talented, but also, let's take a look at what she had to say about joining the Fable team. Fable holds a special place in my heart. It came out the year I started game development, and it's the first game I played with a developer's eye. I loved understanding the how and why of my story choices and seeing the impact I had on the NPCs around me. But even so, I wasn't sure this new Fable was right for me. I was like, is this going to be just a bunch of medieval fart jokes? But the team's story vision reassured and excited me. It's a perfect fit. I can't wait to get started. So right there is a very telling quote. It does make it sound like that they're taking the story of Fable very serious, and it does sound like it may have a more mature tone to it. That's great in my opinion, and actually it's something I wanted them to do. Now that's not to say it won't have that whimsical charm to it either. As we saw from the trailer, there was a good sense of humor, but they can also do that with a different vision than how Lionhead approached their story and their characters. And from the way she explains it, it sounds like they had a good enough vision to convince a very talented writer to join the project. I mean, honestly, if you take a look at who they're hiring, they got a lot of talent there. They have about 200 people working on this game, including veterans from Rocksteady, BioWare, Gearbox, and Ninja Theory. So this seems like another all-star studio for Xbox. We always talk about the initiative and how they've hired a bunch of insanely talented people, but Playground Games is another top-tier studio. That's really the thing that I think gets overlooked so much. Microsoft is not simply just buying these studios. They're also expanding them, and that's why we could end up seeing some very special games this generation from Xbox. They're taking good studios with a lot of potential and giving them resources to make their own dream game. Now we just need to see that vision for Fable though, but I will ask you, if you're a Fable fan, what do you want to see with this new game? Let me know in the comments below. Next up, we've been talking about this quite a bit here recently, and how scalpers have become a huge problem this generation. It's already extremely difficult buying the Xbox Series X or PS5, as we all know. They just sell out almost immediately online, and one of the big reasons for that is because scalpers are using automated bots to buy tens, hundreds, or even thousands of consoles to then go resell them online for double the price. It's ridiculous, really, and it's gotten to the point that UK politicians are thinking about making a law to make using automated bots to do this illegal. I hope that passes, but now we're getting reports that scalpers may be jeopardizing the long-term health for next-generation consoles. Why would that be, though? Well, I actually mentioned this in a previous video, but basically what happens is, because a scalper gets a PS5 instead of a real customer, that means one less customer to buy a game. So as an example, if you have 10 consoles sold, but 9 of those went to a scalper, that means only one person is buying a game, and that's a problem. Now, I'm sure the situation isn't that dire, I mean, that was kind of extreme, but we know for a fact that eBay has sold more than 60,000 next-generation consoles. So we're talking about a very large number here going to scalpers. As for jeopardizing the PS5 and Xbox Series X though, that seems to be happening right now as Bloomberg reports an unusually low attach ratio for the PS5 in Japan. Over in Japan, they've sold roughly 213,000 PS5s since it first launched, which is just absolutely fantastic. But for its first month, it's only sold 63,000 physical games. Now, Bloomberg states that a healthy attach ratio would be 1 game sold per console, and right away we do need to point out that this does not include digital copies. So I'm sure if we included digital as well, it would look a lot better, but apparently the percentage of PS5s in use is not all that high either. That's where it kind of points to a lot of these consoles being hoarded by scalpers, and that does affect games that are out right now, as we just mentioned. Yeah, this is becoming a big problem, and I think that the more this continues, these game makers and publishers might start speaking out against this. I'm sure they're not thrilled about this situation at all, as it does affect their profitability, and they might already be talking to retailers behind the scenes to fix some of these issues. Actually, Walmart already reportedly implemented a new bot preventative measure and blocked 20 million bot attempts on November 25th when they were selling the PS5, and that was apparently just within the first 30 minutes. That is insane, but we do need retailers to take this more serious. This isn't just happening with consoles either. It also happened with the Nvidia graphics card, and really, I could see this becoming a normal thing for any highly anticipated launch. Now, I'm still hoping we get a law made to prevent something like this in the future, but at the same time, it would be nice to see more retailers take this serious. Let me know what you think about all of this though, and what do you think that they need to do to fix this problem? Anyways, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.